Doing? It's Phil Thatch, and I'm here today at Rockmont Park, which is a small park on the side of Lookout Mountain, kind of towards the bottom of the mountain, but not all the way at the bottom of the mountain. And I'm here because my friend Forrest West let me know that in this park, which I'd never heard of before, there's some plants that have lots of good butterflies and skippers and hummingbird moths hanging around. And so first I had to find this place, which was tricky. And then once I found it, I'm having to fight the harsh light. I should have gotten here early in the morning, but I had to take my car for a recall, so I did that this morning. And now I'm trying to get photographs of these butterflies and skippers and hummingbird moths. Today I'm using my OM system OM-1 Mark II. This is the first time I've taken my personal OM-1 Mark II out. I borrowed two different ones from OM system, and I think their goal with letting me borrow those cameras was to get you guys to like the camera, but what ended up happening was they got me to like the camera. So it's kind of like if you can't beat them, join them. Now I've got one. And one of the first lenses that I purchased was their 40 to 150, which is 80 to 300 in full frame equivalency. F4 lens. This is a pro level lens. They've got a super cheap lens at this focal range, and then they've got an extra super expensive lens in this focal range that is a continuous 2.8. I got the one in the middle, the continuous f4, and it has a pretty small or a pretty short minimum focus distance, and that gives it a magnification. I can't remember the maximum magnification, but it's 0.4 something, which is pretty good. Some lenses consider themselves to be macro lenses if they're 0.5, and in my opinion, it's not a true macro lens unless it's 1.0. But this one at 0.4 should do pretty good on larger insects like butterflies, moths, and skippers. I always call these hummingbird moths, but I looked it up and it's actually a snowberry clearwing moth. And they fly around a lot like a hummingbird, which is why I call them hummingbird moths. This is with that crazy little 40 to 150 lens. This is 150 millimeters. I've got it stopped down to 5.6. Wide open is f4. This is 1/2000th of a second and 800 ISO. Harsh light in this shot. It's really hot and the light is really harsh, but every once in a while I get a cloud and then I can make a fairly pretty picture. But most of the pictures that I'm making so far today are kind of not good, not because of the camera or the lens or the photographer, unless you count off on the photographer for coming on a bad day when the light's too harsh. But I did find a couple of places in the shade, and I also have gotten a cloud from time to time. This is a Gulf fritillary, a butterfly that I see pretty common around here, and I believe the flower is a butterfly bush. Another 150 millimeter shot, stopped down to 5.6, 1/2000th of a second, and 1250 ISO. This is a skipper of some variety on a butterfly bush, another shot at 150 millimeters. I got my shutter speed at 1/1600th of a second. I'm still at 5.6, and my ISO is all the way up at 5000. I run all of my pictures through Topaz Denoise AI, and it has done a nice job cleaning this one up. This is an Eastern Tiger Swallowtail butterfly. This is also on a butterfly bush, 150 millimeters. I slowed my shutter speed all the way down to 1/500th of a second. I got a little bit of shade or cloud for this shot. I'm still at f5.6 and my ISO is 1600. Here's another shot of that same butterfly with the exact same settings, just a different pose. This one you can see the underside of the wings, and on this one you can see the top of the wings, and I thought both of them were worth sharing. Here's another shot of that same butterfly with a little bit different angle. I like how you can see the blue on the wings in this shot. For this shot, I'm only at 117 millimeters. I'm still at 5.6, 1/500th of a second, and 1600 ISO. Here's a side view of the Eastern Tiger Swallowtail butterfly. This is 106 millimeters. It's crazy, that tiny little lens, and a lot of times I don't even need the whole thing. 1/500th of a second, f5.6, and 1250 ISO. Here's the more modern sign for the park. Park hours are sunrise to sunset, and there's plenty of parking. And I'm the only car here. How about that? I showed my pictures from today to my wife Heather, and she said this one was her favorite. This is a pipe vine swallowtail, the butterfly on the right, and there's a skipper on the left, and they're both pretty much in focus. This one's only 100 millimeters, 1/500th of a second, f5.6. Got a lot of light on these, so the ISO is all the way down to 400. Here's another shot of one of the eastern tiger swallowtails. This one is back to 150 millimeters. Lots of light, so I've increased my shutter speed all the way up to 1/1600th of a second. I'm still at 5.6 for this one, and my ISO is 400. Just a beautiful creature, this eastern tiger swallowtail butterfly. This is my favorite shot of the day. It's another shot of the eastern tiger swallowtail. I love the angle on this one, and the background looks really nice. Even stopped down to 5.6. This one's 150 millimeters, 1/1000th of a second, and 200 ISO. Another eastern tiger swallowtail photograph. This one's from the back, 122 millimeters, 1/1000th of a second, f5.6, and 320 ISO. And can you believe I made this photograph with that tiny 40 to 150 millimeter f4 lens? And I want you to look at the wings of the hummingbird. This is 1/2500th of a second, so there's no motion blur, but also I'm in electronic shutter with this camera, and there's no rolling shutter distortion. So I'm really happy with this shot. This is 150 millimeters, f5.6, and 1600 ISO of the beautiful ruby-throated hummingbird, probably a female. If you don't like stairs, you would hate this place. It is stairs, stairs, stairs all the way up the mountain. This butterfly looks a lot like a Gulf fritillary, but this one is actually a great spangled fritillary. This is another shot at 150 millimeters. I'm still at 1/2500th of a second, f5.6, and 1250 ISO. Got another shot of that same butterfly with the same settings, except for it's a little darker now, and my ISO has crept up to 2500. And here's one last shot of the great spangled fritillary, probably my favorite one of them. And it's still the same settings, except for I did zoom it back just a little bit to 140 millimeters. I'm still at 1/2500th of a second, 2500 ISO, and f5.6. Here's another shot of the clear-wing moth, one of 2 or 3 that I saw. And of course, I like to call these hummingbird moths. This is 150 millimeters, f5.6. I've got my shutter speed at 1/1250th of a second, and the ISO is 500. I'm using automatic ISO and controlling the exposure with exposure compensation. Works really well on the OM system, OM-1 Mark II. Here's another Gulf fritillary. Really like the way this one turned out. Really cool looking eye on the Gulf fritillary. This is 150 millimeters, f5.6. I've got my shutter speed at 1/1000th of a second, and the ISO is 1000. Got a little bit of a cloud now. I'm actually standing in the shade of this tree, but even these bushes, which I don't know what they're called, they may be butterfly bushes, even they are in a little bit of shadow or soft light because of this cloud that I have. And I've also opened up my aperture. I have been shooting at 5.6 most of the day, and I experimented around and I shot wide open at f4 for a little while, and now I'm trying f4.5. Here's another pipe vine swallowtail. This one's only 100 millimeters, 1/1000th of a second. And I've opened my aperture up to f4 for this shot, and my ISO is only 250. Here's a cute little skipper. I think it's a silver spotted skipper, 150 millimeters wide open at f4, 1/1000th of a second, and my ISO is 320. It's another pipe vine swallowtail. Has a beautiful background in this shot, 150 millimeters. I've stopped it down to f4.5 now, 1/1000th of a second, and my ISO is 1250 for this one. Here's the clear wing moth, which I like to call a hummingbird moth. This is 150 millimeters. I'm back wide open at f4 now, 1/1250th of a second, and my ISO is only 250 for this shot. Those things move their wings really fast. There's motion blur in the wings, even at 1/1250th of a second. I've increased my shutter speed now to 1/2000th of a second, and there's still some motion blur in this shot of the hummingbird moth. Just a beautiful little creature, 150 millimeters wide open at f4 and ISO 320. I'm a little further back on this shot, and it's still cropped a little bit too, of this hummingbird or clearwing moth. 150 millimeters, 1/2000th of a second, seems to have frozen the wings. Wide open at f4 and ISO 1250. My reading glasses fell out of my pocket somewhere on this hill, and I've looked around for them, but I think they're gone. So if you ever come here and find a really cheap set of Amazon reading glasses, black frame, they're probably mine. Here's another Gulf fritillary, wide open at f4, 150 millimeters. I'm at 1/800th of a second and 200 ISO. Here's another beautiful little skipper, a silver spotted skipper, 150 millimeters, wide open at f4, 1/800th of a second for this one, and my ISO is 250. I've got a cloud going on now, so the light is nice and soft, which makes things much prettier in my opinion. And this is 1/800th of a second of this pipevine swallowtail, and they are really difficult to photograph. One of the more difficult butterflies, in my opinion. Their wings are constantly fluttering. It's really difficult to freeze the action, and there is some motion blur in this, but it's not too bad. 1/800th of a second, 150 millimeters, wide open at f4, and the ISO is 640 for this one. Well, I'm trying to have a heat stroke. So I think I'm going to call it. I think if you had told me that my first shoot with my own personal OM system, OM-1 Mark II, would have been butterflies, I would have been skeptical, but that's the way it turned out. Just so happened that right when I got this camera and this lens, my friend told me about this spot, so I had to come see it today. And I think it turned out pretty good. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this content, hit thumbs up. If you want to see some more stuff like this, subscribe and hit the bell. And as always, I hope to see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.